Hello and welcome to rHatchery.live. I'm Jose Leal and with my partner Matt Perez. And today our guest is Iamena Crolla. Did I pronounce that correctly, Iamena?
Yes, perfect.
Awesome. It helps that I can roll my tongue. Corolla.
You're Portuguese, so you have advantage.
Welcome, welcome. Wonderful to
Thank
have
you.
another conversation with you. I've had the privilege of having a pretty lengthy conversation with you, actually, when we first met. Matt has not. So tell us a little bit about, especially how CUMBIA came about, but why CUMBIA came about.
Well, actually, it's a story that starts when I would say 5 or 6 years ago, I realized about the impact that changing the way we work has in the performance of the companies and also in the life of people. I was born, raised in Uruguay. I went then to Paris and I started working in a startup company in 2007, specialized in the renewable energy world. And I grew up with that company. I stayed with them for almost 15 years. And in the last position I had, I was responsible for a team, multicultural, international, and at the same time I have had two kids, and let's say that my life as a mom and my life as a leader were were evolving at the same time. I was asking me questions about what mom I want to be, what leader I want to be, and then I discovered the world about the team organizations, the new ways of working, uh, and for me it was like mind blowing. And I had the chance to experiment everything in my last position. I was really lucky to be able to do that, and I saw in 3 years the power of transformation, the power of applying these principles to teams, to companies. And I had a little voice since maybe 2 or 3 years that was telling me, you have to change this rhythm of corporate life is too much. I wanted to get closer to the earth and to have also more impact in other areas of society. And in 2020, I felt I was ready to do that change. I had a B plan that was, let's say, contributing to the revolution of the workplace. And that's how we moved to Sicily, because my husband is Sicilian. So we found a new home here. And in the same time, I founded CUMBIA, which mission is to contribute to the workplace transformation by supporting companies, any kind of companies, to transform themselves, to align the interests of the persons, of the companies, with the interest of the company itself. So helping the companies to thrive in this new context by engaging everyone that works for them, let's say. So that's how CUMBIA was born.
That's great. So what would you describe when you started CUMBIA, when you were having that energy to do that? What did you think was the problem that you wanted to address? What did you see as the problem within work today?
Um, I could say that the problem is that the problem actually is complex, is diverse, and it's global. So the world has changed a lot in the recent years, and we are still working with an old paradigm, with an old, let's say, mechanistic view of the world, of the universe. So the problems we have now are complex, like climate crisis, COVID, and the ones that will come in the future, migratory crisis, war. So the challenges are daily evolving, and that's the market in where companies must live in and must thrive. So I would say that the main problem is that the companies And I mean, the people inside the companies and the companies are not comfortable with that moving status. We are still stuck in this way of seeing the world. Well, everything is black or white, where if you press a button, you have a predictable result. We could divide problems in smaller parts. We could solve it independently. I mean, we know today how to manage and how to solve very complicated things, but we are lost when it comes to complexity. When we have in front of us like a plate of spaghetti, we are lost. We don't know how to find the solution because we have not been educated in that way. So let's say that business as usual does not work in this new context. So that's the main challenge that I see, and that's in this context, that's where I think there is a lot of work to do in order to help people and companies to get used to that, because it's the future. It's the present, and it will be the future.
Okay.
Matt,
So one thing came to mind as you were talking. There's a company in Spain called Krisos, Krisos, and I will introduce you to the woman who started the whole thing, and she's worked with K2K. Are you familiar with K2K in Spain?
Yes.
In northern Spain, and she works there for a while, and you guys should meet because it's kind of the same thing of transforming companies, and but they're more into not just consulting, but buying a company and transforming it and then sending it back to the employees and stuff like that.
Yes, I've heard. It's they are linked with corporate rebels.
The in corporate rebels is one of the partners.
Yes, I've heard about them.
Okay, and you grew up in Uruguay, and I guess that's Montevideo. Is that where you're from? Okay, it's the biggest town in Uruguay. That's why in the capital. So that's why I guess that thing. The other thing is you mentioned impact, and that's an important word for us. So the companies, I don't know exactly the context, but you mentioned the word impact, and but I think what's standing in the way of impact is this have individual, an individual or a group of people or whatever having an impact beyond what the company wants, the straight way and all that stuff is the system itself. The system, the mindset that assumes that things can be done in a certain time in a certain way. Blah, blah, blah. If not, you're fired. That kind of thing. What are you doing with Cumbia? And I don't know if you have any clients yet, but where are they going? And I'm more interested in what's actually happening going forward towards a more impactful world.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would say that the important thing, and that's why I wanted to title this call "Dare to Choose." I think that the important thing is that we start taking responsibility on our own lives. So we start thinking about how we can contribute, and that's like my definition of impact. I mean, my definition, one definition that I like to use of impact is how I can contribute, even if it is small, even if it is at home, even if it is in my neighborhood, at school, at work, how I can contribute to make someone else's life better, starting by my own life better, and then how can I share, how can I impact someone else's life. Sometimes when we talk about impact, it's so big and the challenges are so huge that it seems like impossible and too far, too difficult. So we say, okay, it's not our fault, it's someone else's fault, it's my boss, it's the shareholders. So I like to see impact, and I like to see these challenges. I like to address, let's say, or face the challenges we have now in this way, in starting by ourselves, saying, how can I change something about my daily life? How can I do something to say stop to this colleague that's treating me in a way that's not okay for me? How can I speak up to say that I want to do a training? How can I speak up to say that I need to leave early the office because I have a boy or a small girl or whatever? So I like to think about impact in this way, because it's everyone can have impact, even if it's not changing the world or being the president of some country and having a huge impact in everybody. But if we all have a small impact, then the impact is exponential. So that's how I see impact, and that's how I see responsibility and the importance of thinking about how oneself can be responsible, what's not going on in your life, I mean, what's not going on in your job, thinking what's actually important for you, what's important for your company, what gets you moving, what do you really care about as a leader or as an employee or just as a citizen, and then try to build a plan around that. So concretely, that's what I'm doing with the companies that I'm working. That's what I'm doing in my life. That's what I'm doing also in other projects that I have, is trying to help people finding their vision, their purpose, in which they can have impact. And it's not necessarily changing the world, but it's maybe changing someone's world, and that's already a lot. So
you're actually, Jose can speak more to purpose, because that's his thing. That you got to start somewhere, and then you get to work, and you're no longer an individual anymore. So the company has changed, but your thing is purpose and having people change their mindset, and that changes. So, what are your clients doing? What are you doing? And what are your clients doing?
So my clients start by accepting that they have to change something, that they have to put themselves in the middle and challenge themselves and all their certitudes they have. So we start questioning yourself, the certainties, listening, accepting from a leader's perspective, because my first approach to a company is the leader or the leadership team. And they have to accept that they do not have all the answers, that the complex, the diverse challenges that we have in front of you can only be raised by a complex and diverse team. So the strategy should be driven by the values of the team, should be driven by what really matters to everyone. So the starting point is having everyone on board and starting from a clear, shared purpose of the company. So why we do what we do, then what do we do to contribute to this purpose? Then we work on the values. We work on what's really important for us.
Let me understand. We were talking about individuals and purpose, and that changes everything. So you're saying that my purpose changes the company's purpose, or because you said about company purpose, and that threw me off.
Yes, I mean, when I work with companies, that's the approach I propose.
Okay.
We start by saying, why does this company exist? I mean, what's the sense? Why, to what higher purpose does this company contribute, or wants this company to contribute? So then we think about how this purpose is aligned with the purpose of the company's employees, about the team, and we draw as a purpose that is shared by everyone, that everyone feels inspired by it. So it's not again, for example, I work with a communication agency right now, and their scope is to their purpose is to contribute to professionalizing and contribute to the growth of the Italian network of companies. I mean, I don't have it in English, I have it in Italian. So, and then they are a communication agency. So what they do to contribute to that is that they work on the communication strategy, on the image of this network. And that's where we start from. So it's something that inspires, having impact on something else than just the work you do every day.
Okay. So
How does
that's
that?
the company. That's the company purpose, right? Not. So it sounds like it proceeds from a company purpose. You talk to the leadership or the CEO or whatever. I don't like the word leadership, but you talk to CEO and the executives, and then come up with a purpose, and then people are inspired by that. Is that about right?
Well, actually, the purpose is written by everyone. It's not a top-down process. It's something that takes time, can take a lot of time depending on the size of the company, but it's not something that's decided by the management. It's something that is
Oh, okay.
built by the whole team. Usually, it's started or kicked off by the management that someday founded the company and had their own story. So it's the input of the founders, of the top leadership. If it's the same, it's really important, but it's not the only one. I mean, to build the purpose of a company, its mission, its values, we need all the team, because the main challenge is having everyone feeling part of it, and feeling that their own personal purpose is aligned, or as aligned as possible, to the company's purpose. So that's a huge challenge, and that's the first step of every work I do, actually.
And so, how
Without
does that?
that, you can move forward. Sorry, Jose.
No, that's all right. I'm sorry for dropping in there, but I mean that's somewhat similar to the traditional mission type of work, right? Where we define a mission or a vision for an organization. How do we then? How does that alter the way that we organize and the way that we work and the way that we govern the organization? What changes from there?
Well, let me jump in and make a correction. It didn't sound like the traditional. The boss tells you what the mission is. Good luck. I don't know about the good luck, but the boss tells you what it is. She says it takes a long time, and I imagine
Understood.
more of a process talking to everybody and coming with
Yeah.
something common. But it's still very company oriented, and okay, that's it. I'm sorry.
So the how does this alter? I mean, this is one part of the puzzle. This is for me the starting point, because it's like the compass that tells you where do we want to go and why we are doing what we are doing, actually. So from there we build a strategy with the goals, or what is needed to ensure that everyone has the needed autonomy. And then we work around the co-management. I've stolen that one from you, Jose, because I really you have the copyright. I like much more that concept compared to self-management, and that's the key. Also, that's another key of the big transformational path that we can promote in companies is how do we structure the company? Again, starting from the purpose, but how do we structure the company in order to ensure that everyone is autonomous in doing their work, their job, while they grow, and why they feel free to do it, but free with limits that are defined by the structure that they have co-built. So the whole one very big challenge, and I think that's probably one of the main challenges, is how to structure this autonomy in order to ensure that the company is co-managed, so everyone is able to do its own work according to rules of the game that are built by the whole team. And that's a really big challenge, because I think, and I've seen that sometimes we kind of do how you say, new ways of working, washing, just by picking the good names, but at the end of the day, it's the same. Like
I
you
love
use
that.
the good model. You put the names, you put everything in circles, but at the end of the day, you see the same paradigm, like people having to ask to their boss to spend 1,000 euros or things like that, So I think that's a very big challenge, and I think that's where we have a lot of work and a lot of potential in order to ensure that everyone is really engaged around that purpose and with the necessary tools in order to contribute to it, actually. So there's a lot of work.
So you're saying that people have to be aligned, and definitely people have to be aligned. Particularly in our model, which is no bosses, no hierarchy, no titles. Then what do you do? Which way are you rowing, right? And people have to be aligned to pull in the same direction. So.
Yes, but they also need to know what they can do and what they cannot do. I like, as I said at the beginning, my first approach to these new ways of working was being a mother and asking myself, how do I want to raise my kids? And my first approach to autonomy and responsibilization was with my kids. And then I used it in the companies that I work for. But autonomy is being free, but knowing where you can go and where you cannot go. And
can you give us an example of that? Can you speak about your kids and how that works in that context?
Yes, of course. We have in our house, we have the rules of the house. They are in the walls, and we all know them. We are not always happy to live by them. And if we need to update them, then we update them. We do a meeting, we discuss, and we change them. My kids are 6 and 8 years old. And we've done that for some years now. And in a company it's the same. More complex probably because we have processes, because we have steps, we have other rules outside of the company that we need to respect. But it's actually more or less the same. It's how to.
But I'm interested. I'm interested in how it works in your house. A 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and you agree to a set of rules and stuff like that. So I'd like you to walk me through that. So it lets the kids be autonomous within that boundary. And but how does it work? I'm fascinated by that.
Well, I could show you the board that we have. If you want, I can take it. I can ask my children to take them. They could present it to you. Not sure in English, but maybe in Spanish or Italian. But it's actually knowing what's important for us. So for us, it's important to respect timing. So it's important to know at what time we are getting out of bed, what time is breakfast, what time we go to school. And if we don't, then we have no more time. If we are late to breakfast, then we have no more time. And we might go to school without having breakfast. So it's like teaching them that there are rules, that we agree on them, and that if they don't respect those rules, then there are consequences that come just naturally or logically. So it's not punishing them, just as in a company. It's not punishing. It's just assuming that if we agree on something, then we have to respect it. So we have rules about how we speak to each other, about the fact that we don't have to raise the voice or to use violence between brothers and sisters. Sometimes it can get tough. So these rules, we have always put them on the wall at home, and they have evolved with time. Some years ago, it was the pencils are for coloring and not for eating. Now we kept them, like we have them stored, because I think we will laugh a lot when they will be grown up. But it's like that, and that's life. I mean, we need to live by rules. If we want to have safe and strong bonds, we need to agree on how do we want to manage those bonds.
So Iamena,
Yeah.
I have a different perspective, and I wonder if you would entertain me for a second. So those rules that you called rules were co-created,
Yes.
and so they're an agreement.
Yes.
They were co-created agreements,
Yes.
and my view is that when we look at a rule imposed by a ruler, then that's a rule that's imposed, right? And I didn't make it.
Yes.
Whereas, and it's actually our mutual colleague Doug Kirkpatrick that introduced this idea to us. We don't impose rules; we impose agreements on each other, and we honor
Yes.
those agreements, right? And so the idea for us has been that the concept of imposing rules always makes someone feel like they're being imposed on. Whereas agreeing to the terms of engagement, whatever the engagement happens to be, in this case, living in a home together, makes for a different role. So I like that language better myself, but I think what you're saying is what you're dealing with is not rules by the traditional term definition of rules, but agreements that came and emerged together, and we very much agree with that as the types of agreements that we make within organizations and across each other as well, working together.
Yeah, she's talking about more the limits. You have to get to school to a certain time, etc. So what are we going to do about it? And I mean, one of the rules could be wait until they turn 17. Because
I'm not in a hurry.
Because then the rule would be, who cares about their timing? I'm gonna go whenever I feel like it. And so yeah, it's gonna get more complicated. But school starts at a certain time and ends at a certain time, and stores close and open and stuff like that. My feeling is that she was putting a lot of emphasis in that boundary.
Yeah.
There's more of a boundary rather than what's inside the circle, which is what I'll say was talking about, more about, and what are we going to do about it? That's our agreements to show up on time and leave on time and stuff like that.
We've got a couple of minutes.
Being aware that there are rules imposed by the system. So
yeah, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I'm wondering if maybe we can ask Iamena to talk a little bit about whether she thinks that the work that we're all doing in this space of future of work and CUMBIA and K2K and all of the other folks that are working on this are what's missing. What do you think is still missing? What hasn't really been tackled?
I'm not sure that I have the answer for that because I'm still experimenting a lot, and I think that if we keep experimenting with what already has been done, and we keep having more impact on more companies, it will be already a lot. I would say that what I see sometimes lacking is, might seem strange, but it's more listening from the consultant side, let's say. More empathy with the company, more empathy with the real life they face, more empathy with the complexity of the businesses. Sometimes we are so, also as consultants, so focused, so convinced, so, fan of what we do, that we forget that for companies part of the solution, let's say, or part of their time, and it's not always easy for them to have the availability they need. So I would say that what we need is to remember that even if we might be sometimes more aware of some things and sometimes more informed about this kind of the impact that this kind of working can have, we should be much really humble and really listening to the company's needs, also in terms of business and very pragmatic aspects. So I feel sometimes that's lacking.
We've run out of time, and I'm not sure if that's the alarm or if that's a phone call for Matt. But
just a phone call, but it could as well be an alarm. I have one last question that I want to sneak in. So I founded and I was part of a company, and still am, for 17 years, and it was self-managed because the co-management thing hadn't come up, but co-managed, okay? And what I discovered many years later with Jose's help is that even though it's self-managed, the other big part of the thing that you and I have to resolve is the ownership, because you may not be the boss, but you're the owner. And that made a huge difference in our thinking. So I invite you to consider that at some point.
Yes, I don't know if we have 1 minute more, or
we can stretch it a little bit.
Yeah.
We can stretch. So I really thought a lot about that because after our discussion with Jose, that was something that kept in my mind, and I really think that the key element is, of course, the governance, and how do you structure the way that you can decide in a company. But I think that there is a challenge. I'm not sure about the answer of that. I would say that for sure, if you have co-ownership, it's great. But the challenge is that if you have co-owners that are at different level of awareness, different level of consciousness, let's say evolution, it might also be a challenge, because co-ownership could be like the ideal system, the ideal way of functioning, but you need all the co-owners to be at the same level or very close level of alignment, purpose, vision. And I think that's a huge challenge. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's really difficult.
It's a huge challenge. And I mean, it took me over a year to figure it out. So it wasn't oh my God, it's ownership. So no, it's a huge challenge in general. So
yeah.
With that, that's the end of the interview, and we thank you very much. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
Talking with you. And the next interview is with Paul Allard, co-founder of Impact Finance, and he's going to talk about ESG and gain transparency. I don't know those two are related. Well, anyway, I got my own opinion about ESG, but anyways, and ESG standing for environmental, social, and governance investing. But we'll see what he has to say. It's a complicated thing, and my own position, our position is that once things become encased in law, it's more of it always protects business as it is, not business as should be, and we're stuck with it, and we have to fight that as well. So or work around it or resist it or whatever the right word is without killing anybody. I don't want to kill anybody. And so with that, Jose, do you have anything else?
No, just thank you, Iamena. It's a pleasure again. And I look forward to future conversations. And I'll send you the bill for co-management.
No.
She's laughing. No,
I'm Italian, you know.
Yeah,
It's like I'm Italian, Uruguayan, so I laugh when we talk about money.
no, it was a joke.
Absolutely.
With that, thank you very much, and
Thanks a lot.
we'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot.